What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be doing another one of our breakdown videos of the Walking Dead game. Now, our last one we did of season 1, which we went ahead and broke down each character who is alive and who is dead from that season, so that way we get a better understanding of what has happened in the game. If you guys don't remember, there was like over 50 characters in the Walking Dead season 1, everything from the cancer survivors, Crawford survivors, Jolene's family, that crazy lady that got shot. Then we have like the Stone Mountain school survivors with David and Ben and Travis. There are just tons of characters. I didn't remember a lot of them, so it was a really good refresher. And I definitely recommend you check out that video if you're interested in learning about all the characters who keep coming up in The Walking Dead. And if you're just curious and you want kind of a refresher on who is still alive and who's dead. A lot of people died. A lot of people are unknown at this time. But overall, there are just tons of characters, so this video kind of fits well with our downtime between episodes in Season 2. So, with that said, in this video, we're going to be doing the 400 days. This is the every character that's alive in 400 days, and basically what we're going to do is just go ahead and explain if they're alive, if they're dead, and if they are dead, what happened to them. Now, just as a preface, in the top right, you guys can see we have 5 categories. We have alive, dead, undead, unknown, and determinate. Now, what does unknown mean? Now, unknown just means that last time we saw them, they were alive, but since then, they've been injured, lost, or whatever has happened to them. We just don't know what is currently happening to this character. A good example of this is Glenn. Glenn went off with to look for his friends. We don't know what happened to him. He's not injured by any means, but we just don't know where he currently is. The other one that may be a little confusing is the purple one. This is determinate, and this status only applies to characters in the game where you determine the final status of the character. So whether you shoot someone or they get bitten by a walker, different things like that, or maybe they're still alive versus dead, depending on what you do. So an example of this is Lee. Lee is dead, but the outcome, you determine what happens to him. Another example, Kenny Jr., you decide to save him or let him die. He dies either way. It's just a matter of how he dies. So that's what that is, guys. I hope that helps out a little bit with the explaining. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive into our first group, which is the Convicts. Alright, so for our Convicts, we have 5 people. Now, these 5 people, all of them except for one, which is Vince, ends up dead, which is kind of unfortunate. But with that said, each convict we have Vince, Justin, Danny, Marcus, and Jerry. Now, Vince, starting out right away, he is an unknown person. We don't know what happened to him. He was one of the people that was in the end when that new group came. I believe it was Tavia's community who was with that new group, and I think that's when he was last seen. So he's still an unknown status, could be coming back. You never know, but that's what's going on with him. His lifespan, though, as you can see in the bottom, is 400 days to present. And then next we have Justin. Justin ends up being left behind in the bus after Vince shot his ankle. He is most likely gonna die. He's zombified. That's pretty much what happens with him. Next we have Danny. Danny's being left behind in the bus after Vince shot his ankle in order to escape. So same situation here when they tried to escape. And then Marcus and Jerry are for sure dead, no matter what your outcome was. These were the guys that got in a little scuffle there, and you can see in the bottom right, you can see pictures of when he was getting choked out on the bus, if you guys remember that. And then I guess Marcus got shot in the head too, which I believe he got shot in the head by one of the security guards or the personnel that was on the bus. But anyway, those are the convicts that are still alive and still dead. And speaking of the personnel, let's go ahead and do them next, because they did have a little bit of a scuffle, and that actually caused Marcus to die and Jerry to end up dying as well. Quite crazy, but let's go ahead and move on to the personnel. Alright, so for the personnel on the bus, we have 2 people. We have Bennett and Clyde. Now, Clyde and Bennett are both dead. For Bennett, he was run over by Eddie, injuring him and possibly causing his death, so that's a determinate ending. And then Clyde ended up dead. I think he got bit by a walker is what happened. Yeah, he got bit by a walker on the bus when they were getting overrun by zombies. We don't know much else about these characters. They are pretty minor. I don't expect them to come back, but just as a kind of informational thing, they're both dead or zombified at this point, and they're both prison guards on the bus. As it goes with pretty much every character in The Walking Dead 400 days, we didn't really have a lot of time to learn a lot about each character, but one of the two, or I guess a group of the characters that we did examine and learn about, was Russell and Nate. Now, these two weren't huge characters. Like I said, it's just hard to get all that information into 400 days. It was very brief. If you guys haven't played through 400 days, check out my playthrough. You'll learn pretty quickly. They were really brief about each character. But anyway, these guys were on a road. Nate picked up Russell, and they kind of go on together for a little while. Russell's a younger guy. He's in his late teens, early 20s. Nate is a little bit older, 20s, 30s, so they're pretty close on age, and they don't really mesh well. They're two different types of guys, but at the end of the day, we don't know the status of either one of them. They were kind of left in the end there of 400 days as well. So they were a little group together, but we don't know what happens to them at the end. They are currently unknown and could come back in The Walking Dead. So our next two survivors are Eddie and Wyatt. Now these guys were definitely the funniest two in 400 days. I think they were smoking joints in the car as you were driving around getting chased by people. It was just hilarious. I think they ran over someone, as I recall. It was just a mess. They're a great group of people, but at the end of the day, we're here to learn if they are alive or dead. If you guys want to learn more about them, though, I recommend you check out the channel and search for Eddie and Wyatt. You guys will see my coverage of them in 400 days. So anyway, right now we know they're both unknown. We don't really know anything else about them. As I recall, they were separated briefly at the end, but at the end of the day, we don't know what happened to them. They showed up in 400 days. Like many of the characters, they just kind of were left with cliffhangers. So we don't know what's happened to them. Neither one of them has been bit or infected or anything like that. And I don't think they're dead. They were cool guys, and I think they'll come back eventually. Maybe potentially come back, but we'll see what happens. They are both unknown characters, though. Alright, so our next group is Bonnie's group. Now, this is a little bit of a weird one. Bonnie ends up killing Dee, and Leland actually ends up being shot by Roman. So, everyone's dead except for Bonnie. Although Leland is a determined ending, we can definitely say he's dead. And so is Dee. Dee actually gets killed by Bonnie, gets struck in the head by a rebar that Bonnie picked up, thinking that it was someone that was chasing her. So what happened was they were running through a cornfield. Bonnie had ducked in cover. Dee snuck up on her. Bonnie, not knowing it was Dee, hit her in the head, ended up killing her, and that's how she's dead. And then, like I said, Leland also got shot by Roman. So that's the current status of them. Although Dee and Leland are dead, Bonnie is actually still unknown. So we don't know where she currently is. She just runs off in the distance at the end there, as I recall. So she's still out there. We don't know what's happened to her, but Dee and Leland are both dead. So as you may recall, Gails Pit Shop, it actually came up in 400 days, and then again with the opening of Season 2. Season 2, it actually introduced Michelle, who died. She was the person who killed Omid, and then Krista killed her. So that's kind of where Gails Pit Shop comes up. So it actually comes up again in Season 2. But for 400 days, the people who were introduced here were Shell, Roberto, Becca, Roman, and Stephanie. Now this was a pretty interesting group of survivors. They were the people that kept the walkers on the leash in the back, which was kind of interesting. Roberto was captured by them and ended up you got to choose if you wanted to let him go or not. So anyway, let's go ahead and break down each one of these characters now that you have a little bit of a background of who they were. Hopefully it refreshes you a little bit about what happened to them. First thing, we have Shell. She is currently unknown. Then we have Roberto. He was the guy who got captured. He was trying to sneak around, I guess. And then Roberto was actually killed by Roman in a determinate ending. So it's kind of your choice of what to do. And then that kind of determined, I believe what happened was that they got raided by Roberto's group. If you let him go, they brought him back. If you killed them, they came anyway. So it was kind of one of those situations, I believe is what happened. Don't quote me on that one. But at the end of the day, he is dead regardless. As you can see there in the bottom, picture of him being killed by Roman. Next, we have Becca. Becca is another character who is currently unknown, her and Shell. So we'll see what happens with them. The last two we have here is Roman and Stephanie. Now, Roman ends up being found dead on the ground by Clementine, so we know for sure he is dead. This actually came up in Season 2. Do we know what happened to him? He was shot in the head. That's what we know. And then we know he was in 400 days and popped up again in All That Remains as a corpse. So like I said, by the river, we saw his body of him being shot in the head. We don't know exactly what happened to him, though. Stephanie is another person. Stephanie locked in the trailer before being executed, so that's what happened with her. Not much else to be done there. And she was either executed by Roman or Shell, depending on what you did. So I guess for me, I think it was Shell. I ended up executing her. But anyway, that's what happened. She's dead regardless. Roman ends up dead. Roberto ends up dead as well. So the only people that are alive out of this group is Shell and Rebecca. So the next group I'm going to bring up really quickly here because they're both dead. We have Walt and Gina, or Jean. They were held up in a diner. They ended up being killed by Nate. This kind of made a little bit of a scuffle between Nate and Russell. Kind of determined that they weren't the best fit for each other. But at the end of the day, Nate ended up killing both these guys while they were held up in a diner. There was a little bit of a firefight that happened between them. But there wasn't really much to it. It just kind of furthered the storyline between Nate and Russell. Alright, so the last group we have here is just one person. This is Tavia, I believe is how you pronounce her name, if I'm remembering that correctly. And she comes up at the end kind of saying, hey guys, for all the survivors that were still there, hey, I have this community, come with me. And she's unknown, right? There's not much known about her. That was kind of the ending of 400 days. And then you kind of determine what group is going to go with her and what group is not going to go with her. We don't really know what happens there. It kind of just is a cliffhanger, which leaves off a lot to be determined later on. So that's what we have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed all of the character breakdown. We had a lot of characters to go through, not quite as much as season 1, but yeah, there were still a good amount of characters. Now do stay tuned. I am probably going to be doing one on season 2 in a couple days here, but I don't know if I'm kind of iffy right now because I want to do it once it's complete, so I may wait, I may not. Tell me in the comments below if you guys want to see one right now of kind of a current progression of who's alive, who's dead, or if you just want to see it once the season 2 is actually complete and we can go through each character. Or I could do both. It really depends on what you guys want to see. So with all that said, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy, leave a thumbs up and a favorite, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Till then, peace, and here's the outro.